Welcome back to Sometimes Love Isn't Enough, the Parenting Through Challenges podcast. I am your host, Angie Grant. And well, as I'm recording this episode, it's actually the day before Thanksgiving here in the United States. So I know the episode, it'll be airing a few weeks later, but that's okay, right? This concept of gratitude isn't just a once a year kind of thing. I know here in the US, we tend to focus on gratitude around Thanksgiving, but it is it is something that I think it's a bit of a buzzword. A lot of people talk about, having a gratitude journal and daily gratitude and so I wanted to talk about it. Not only has it been on my mind because of the holiday, but it's something that comes up a lot as I'm working with clients, as I'm giving presentations. This concept of gratitude comes up a lot. And I think about the power that it has when it's used appropriately. I had said that it's often, I hear in so many of the self-improvement spaces about this idea of having a gratitude journal. And and I don't dismiss that concept. I think for many of us it can have this power to remind us about what we're thankful for. It has this power to remind us that not everything in life is a struggle. But I often find that, at least when I first started thinking about this concept of gratitude, that it's easy to pick the things that are easy. It's easy to say, I'm grateful that I have a warm home as it's freezing cold and windy out right now. I'm so grateful that the heat is working in the house, right? That's easy. Or it's easy to have gratitude for a fridge that has food that I can eat and that I don't have to struggle to pay for food. It's easy to be grateful for support that we have from family and loved ones. But what do we do when things are hard? What do we do when, for example, right, it might be easy to be grateful for one of your kiddos who's so well behaved in your eyes, and to then feel the struggle about maybe feeling a lack of gratitude for your other child, or feeling a lack of gratitude for your partner or co-parent. So that's the part that I want to talk about. And I want to talk about the easy part. That's easy. But I want to outline a couple of key concepts, right? Because I want to talk about finding gratitude when things are hard, and especially finding gratitude when things are hard in our parenting relationship, whether it's about our kiddo or about our co-parent or support network. I want to talk about that concept about how in the heck do we find gratitude when things seem so incredibly hard? And why would we do it anyways? Well, here's why I recommend doing it. Because when we're stuck in this mindset, this thought process that everything's hard, that nothing's working, that the the things that we're dealing with are just so overwhelming, when that's all that we can see, that's how we show up. What what we think about is what influences our feelings, which influences our behaviors. That's basic mindset principles, is that when we're in that space where all we can see is that things are hard or things suck, then that's what we are creating. We're creating a space where we're showing up, anticipating the worst, and oftentimes our energy, our behaviors lead into that. And I know I say this time and time again, but I'm going to repeat it again. I'm not saying that you're causing your child's behaviors, but what if we could go into our parenting interactions with this ability to almost ninja what we're thinking in a way that acknowledges our frustration, but also creates a space where we can start shifting the way that we're thinking about our kids, the way we're showing up for our kids. And that's where I find the power of gratitude. I've often called it, I don't remember where I heard this from, but I think about finding gratitude in the suck. So when things are really sucking. So for example, you are driving to work and you're already running late and you were hoping you were going to catch up and get there on time. And then there's an accident and you're instantly in this place of frustration and maybe frantically calling your boss or trying to problem solve what you're going to do about it. And you're going to be late and maybe you'll get fired, right? To be able to find gratitude in that moment, that's where the challenge lies. And that's where I think that we really have the power to really shift the way that we think about all of the things that we're struggling with. So here, here's my thought about that is that when things are hard, it is so incredibly important to acknowledge what first comes up for us. If we're feeling frustrated or defeated, or if we're feeling afraid or angry, disappointed, whatever that feeling is, I my strategy that I share with my clients is to first acknowledge your feeling, right? I'm feeling frustrated because my child isn't listening to me, or I'm feeling angry because my co-parent is undermining the things that I have put in place for the kids, or I'm feeling scared because I'm afraid that my child's going to hurt somebody, right? Your feelings that you're feeling, those are a real part of what your body is holding on to. And so we don't want to dismiss that. It is important for us to acknowledge that first. But then when you're ready to say, like, okay, I have felt my frustration, and how long really depends on you, right? We're all so different. But what I really want to challenge you to think about is as humans, we tend to hold on to whatever that negative feeling is for way past its necessary time frame, right? We might feel frustrated about getting interrupted while we're working on a task. We might feel frustrated and the moment has come and gone and we're back on our task, yet we'll hold on to that frustration for hours or days or weeks or months or years. We'll hold on to that frustration. We'll hold it in our body. It'll show up in the way that our nervous system reacts to what's happening in our life. And so I want to challenge you to really think about how long do I need to hold on to that negative feeling? How long is it necessary? When we think about that idea of fear, right? Fear is a necessary reaction that our body goes through to protect us, to keep us safe. But we hold on to fear for decades or for our entire life unless we do something about it, unless we take specific action to get that fear out of our body so that we can move on and start responding in the way that we want to. So, so acknowledge whatever that feeling is that comes up about, your kids are screaming and fighting and you're trying to make dinner and you feel like you can't focus on what's happening with dinner. To notice your frustration, perhaps you're pausing so that you're not yelling. Maybe that is a habit that you're working on breaking, or maybe you're trying to implement, taking deep breaths or a strategy that you're trying to employ. But first, notice that feeling that comes up. And I then encourage you to first, like, once you've acknowledged that and you've decided, like, okay, I, I felt my frustration. I don't want to stick with it anymore. Quite honestly, it's going to ruin the rest of my day. And I felt it. I'm good with it. And then the next step that I encourage you to do is to thank that feeling. Like, thank you, frustration, for showing up and reminding me that this is still something that I'm working on. Or thank you, anger, for showing up and really reminding me that I'm working on better communication with my co-parent. Or thank you, fear, for showing up and reminding me that I'm human, but I don't want to hold on to you for the rest of my life about this particular incident. So acknowledging the feeling, thanking it for showing up, and then to completely shift that situation around and to find gratitude in what is happening. So, what might that look like? Well, I think about examples where, in recently, right? So, I I put a lot on my own plate. I take on a lot. between work and coaching and my podcast. And we live in a multi-generational home, and I want to spend a lot of time with my grandkids. I oftentimes am cooking dinner and helping with cleaning up. I put a lot on my plate. And sometimes I'm not taking great care of my body. So I might come home and be hungry, and my nervous system is a little bit more reactive. And so, somebody will come into the kitchen while I'm making dinner, for example, and I, my whole body, right? They're in my space, they're in my way. My whole body will tense up and I will feel in this reactive state. I might say words. I don't tend to yell. That's not really my go-to, but sometimes I might be a little bit passive aggressive or a lot bit passive aggressive, right? And I might say something like, wow, you couldn't wait for a snack until later, or something like that, right? When I'm having those reactions, it's a key signal to me that, oh, whoa, I'm a little bit dysregulated right now, and I've been triggered. And so I thank my body for feeling that frustration, for letting me know that it was feeling frustrated. And and then what I do next is this powerful ninja shift. So I take that situation that was causing me frustration. It was like boiling up in my body, and I flip it on its head. And I look for something that I can be grateful about. So, for example, if somebody's in my way, I'm trying to get dinner and I feel all this pressure to get it done. I have an open route, for crying out loud. Feeling pressure is my jam. But so I feel all this pressure and I feel like I'm going to be reactive. And I would reactively want to say something like, something passive aggressive, or can you get out of the kitchen? I'm trying to get things done. But instead, I say, wow, I'm so grateful that you came into the kitchen because I could really use your help. Or I'm so grateful that you're here because I was thinking I wanted to say something to you earlier today, and I would have forgotten if you hadn't come into the kitchen. Or I'm so grateful that you showed up to let me know that you're home. To find something that I can be grateful for in that moment completely changes my body. It changes the way that I'm showing up for myself, because that stress that I was holding in my body, because, like I said, I have this open root. I was well, I wasn't well fed. I didn't eat enough during the day, and I was in a space where I was likely to be more reactive, and my nervous system responded accordingly. And so taking that moment and really shifting, acknowledging my feeling, but shifting around what was happening and finding gratitude in the moment is powerful. So you think about this idea of, what in the heck do you do if your kids are misbehaving? How do you find gratitude in that? Well, again, first acknowledge your frustration or your anger or your resent or whatever that feeling is that you have. And then when you're ready, thank it for showing up. And oftentimes when I think about our kids, my first go-to gratitude is actually this idea of thanking our kids, not necessarily out loud, but in my head, but thanking our kids for teaching me a little bit more about me. That idea of thank you for teaching me how to take a little bit more control over my emotions. Or thank you for bringing my awareness back to my emotions so that I don't hold on to that frustration forever. Because it is in that moment with our kids where they're acting out and they're driving us nuts. And if we see them as the problem and not as a source of our learning, then we're going to keep being frustrated with them, or we're going to keep reacting to them. Versus if we can flip that on its head and, internally thank our kids for being a catalyst for our own growth, for our own change, for our own breaking of those generational patterns. When we can see our kids through that lens, it totally, totally changes the way that we show up for them. It totally changes the way that we respond to them. It totally changes the energy that we're putting into our interactions with them. So, a key point that I want to have you consider as you're thinking about, how do you do this, right? Because we are all designed so incredibly differently. So before you jump into changing your approach, I do really encourage you to understand your authority through human design just a little bit. Because when you are following your strategy and authority and you're making decisions that are aligned with you, they'll sit better with you. They'll stick with you. They will be more aligned with you and they won't create more disconnect. Because if, for example, you have emotional authority and you need to ride your wave out before you can come to a place to decide the best way to find gratitude in a challenging situation, well, then jumping in to try and figure out how I can find gratitude in this challenging situation when you really need to wait your wave out can create more chaos than you want. So, understanding your authority, if, for example, you have a sacral authority, sacral decision making, then trust your gut in the moment. If you've gone through the process of acknowledging your emotion, thanking it for showing up, and then wanting to flip that on its head, and you have sacral authority, trust your gut about whatever that first gratitude thing is that shows up, respond to that and see how it sits with you. But if you have emotional authority, that's a whole different way of looking at things. And there's so many other different types of authority. I just wanted to encourage you to make sure that as you're implementing these strategies, that you're doing it in a way that's aligned for you, not for me, not for your kids. Do it in a way that's aligned for you because when you are making decisions, when you are taking action, when you are showing up in a way that's aligned for your energy, you come across so differently. You're perceived so differently. Your energy is at a higher frequency because you're stepping into who you are meant to be, not in your conditioned shadow frequency. When we do when we do this work to really shift the way that we're responding in the moments for our kids, when we're finding gratitude in the things that are so incredibly hard, we have the power to really shift things for our kids, to shift their behaviors. So, if you want to know more about your strategy and authority, I encourage you to book a connection clarity call. I'll go through your design a little bit and also walk you through a powerful exercise to help you figure out where you're really getting stuck in your parenting relationship because it doesn't have to be this hard. When we are more aligned with our own energy, it all gets a bit easier. It all is in a bit more flow. And we are better aligned with making decisions that are right for us instead of trying to figure out how to keep everybody else happy or trying to figure out how to put out the next fire. So I encourage you to book a connection clarity call. And I'd love to hear your thoughts about the strategy of finding gratitude in things that are hard. I'd love to hear how you're implementing it in your family. So let's connect soon.